Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for coming today. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Keith Moen, and it's my privilege and honor to be the Executive Director of your NSBA, Saskatoon's Business Association. We are, for those that you do not know, we're a membership-based association that focuses on business lobbying and advocacy on behalf of our members. And our roots are originally in Saskatoon's North End. As a matter of fact, this very hotel, the owner at one time was the founder of the NSBA, so I'm very fortunate to be here and grateful that we had the opportunity to gather here at this place. And also want to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on Treaty 6 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis. Obviously, I want to also acknowledge and welcome our special guests. We have, I'm going to go by the sight lines. I see them, Carrie Tarasoff right here, candidate Carrie Tarasoff, candidate Don Atchison, candidate Cynthia Block is right over here to my left, and then Gordon Wyant is at the far left table. So a nice round of applause for those folks, please. In addition to that, we have some dignified guests, I'll call them. You're all dignified and VIPs in my books, but we have some members that are sitting in various capacities as serving as public servants for us, and so I want to acknowledge and thank those folks. We have Ken Cheveldayoff with MLA with Saskatoon Silver Spring, and there in the corner over there. Thanks, Ken. Joe Hargrave, MLA for Saskatoon, or rather Prince Albert Carleton. I'm so used to saying Saskatoon, Joe, it just comes out of my lips easily. And certainly, last but not least, and I don't know if there's anybody else in the room, but my apologies if there is, but I just want to save a special recognition for Reeve Judy Harwood, Reeve of Corman Park, a former member of the year for the NSBA, a former president, board chair of the NSBA, a former Shirley Ryan Lifetime Achievement Award winner. She's done it all, she's won it all, and she ran this place for years as well, but near and dear to our hearts, Judy Harwood, so thank you for your service as well. Okay, so for those of you that don't know anything about us, the NSBA, we are a fiercely independent, member-driven organization that works for you. We wanted to take this time to thank you, the members, whether it's lobbying on your behalf to elected officials, creating programming that consistently exceeds expectations, or helping to create a collegial atmosphere rather within the business community. The NSBA places the needs of its members first. The NSBA makes us who we are, and who you are is you're loyal, hardworking, and community-minded, and you strive to give back to the community more than it gives to you, and we strive to give back to you more than you give to us. As one esteemed member so eloquently put it, being a part of the association, the NSBA, it's a no-brainer. You give to get. If you're not a member but are interested in joining the association, by all means, please talk to any of my staff, most of whom were out at the front, and we'd be happy to queue you up with that opportunity. Okay, now moving on to today's event, the NSBA Election Series. The NSBA is pleased to be among the first organizations to bring the mayoral candidates under one roof for an engaging and insightful conversation on topics that matter to you. Today's mayoral forum is being recorded by our friends at Rogers TV and will be televised on Rogers TV September 27th at 7 p.m. and following that as well with repeat broadcasts. So watch their channel listings for those opportunities. Additionally, the NSBA will share the forum on all social media channels and via YouTube. And for those who are catching this telecast, that's you folks that look at the camera, this broadcast was recorded live at an NSBA mayoral debate on September 24th at the Saskatoon Travelodge Hotel. This is the third election series, the third election series event the NSBA has held this year, and these events also fall under the banner of our network series. We could not do this without generous support of our network series sponsors, which we now want to acknowledge and thank. They are Biz Hub Industrial Park, Ghost Transportation Services, Graham Construction, McClellan DeBuscher Chartered Accountants, PCL Construction, 77 Signs, and TD Bank. And lastly, a couple of upcoming events you might want to be interested in. Lessons I've Learned presented by KPMG is taking place on Tuesday, October 1st, a week from today. This NSBA signature event sells out fast, so if you would like to attend, please contact the office or visit nsbasask.com. And lastly, our next NSBA Network Series breakfast event will be on Wednesday, October 23rd, during Small Business Week, featuring Arnaud Franco, the Director of Economics and Research for BDC, who will be speaking on the key trends that will shape your business over the next 5 years and strategies to navigate them successfully. Final details will be posted on our website soon, so save the date in your calendars. Okay, so that's the preamble. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now call up our mayoral candidates. We have candidate Don Atchison, candidate Cynthia Block, candidate Carrie Tarasoff, and candidate Gordon Wyant to the stage, please. And I know you're here to hear them speak, but I've got a little bit more of an introduction for you in terms of the format of today's event. The format which was shared with the candidates just a few short hours ago is that each candidate will be given a 2-minute opening statement opportunity. Following these opening comments, we will begin with a debate. A set of questions has been derived from a membership survey that was sent out to the NSBA membership. We have 8 questions in total, which means 2 for each candidate. After the candidate has heard the question, the responding candidate will have up to 2 minutes to answer. After the question has been answered, each of the other 3 candidates will have the opportunity to rebut that answer. However, only 1 rebuttal will be allowed. So 1 person will be able to rebut the original respondent. I'll ask that rebutter to raise their hand. They'll get my attention. I'll be looking at them to acknowledge when they want to be the rebutter. They will be given a minute to give the rebuttal. The original respondent will be given another minute to respond to that rebuttal, and then we may have another minute of back and forth dialogue between the 2. With the help of my team, we're going to monitor the time, and then when we run out of time, we'll move on to the next question with the next candidate. Now, it's our intention to provide equal rebuttal opportunities to each of the candidates, and that means each candidate will also be limited to 2 rebuttal opportunities. Therefore, our candidates will have to be strategic in how and where they choose to become engaged in the dialogue. After approximately 48 minutes of the questions and debate, we will then move to closing statements, of which each candidate will be given 2 minutes to close out. Prior to the program, we assigned a number to each candidate. We then used a random number generator to determine the order of speakers for each of the 4 rounds of this debate. We're calling the Q&A actually 2 rounds because there's round 1 of 4 questions, round 2 of 4 questions. The order for the opening statements will be as follows. We have candidate Cynthia Block going first, candidate Gordon Wyant going second, candidate Carrie Tarasoff going third, and we'll close out the opening comments with candidate Don Atchison. And following that, then we'll get into the questions. So I'll now turn it over to candidate Cynthia Block.
Thanks very much, and thank you to the NSBA for hosting and to all of you for joining us here today, including everyone watching. It is truly my privilege to be here today as we gather on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. I'm a candidate and a proud settler and grateful for the privilege to have a conversation about the way we move our city forward. My vision for Saskatoon is a safe, affordable, vibrant city and territory where everyone has an opportunity to succeed. We have challenges to overcome, and as your mayor, I pledge to work with you to make sure Saskatoon is a safe and welcoming place for all people. As your mayor, homelessness and community safety will be my top priorities. But I want to use this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the amazing things that are going on in our city. I'm very excited that we are the fastest growing city in Canada by population. We are the economic engine of our province. We are the fastest growing economy in Canada. And we are among the lowest unemployment rates, and we need to harness that opportunity. My plan is to accelerate housing supply to ensure rent is affordable and housing attainable. We need to focus growth inward and upward where infrastructure and services already exist. We need to move forward with LINK, a modern public transportation system. We need to keep up with the basics to make sure that we are critically ready with good sidewalks and good roadways and all amenities are in play. This is critical to help Saskatoon compete. It will lay the foundation needed for a modern 21st century city that not only has what the world needs in raw resources, but is ready to take its place as an economic hub and for value-added industry, manufacturing, technology, and tourism. It's how we compete and keep our young people here, a city that is livable, walkable, affordable, and a place for all people. I invite you to join me.
Thank you, candidate Block. And impeccably timed, I must say. Well done. Okay, next we have candidate Gordon Wyant.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Keith, for hosting the event, and welcome everyone to hear the candidates speak today. I'm Gordon Wyant, and I'm running to be your mayor. Saskatoon is at a crossroads, and it's time for a clear, focused plan that works for everyone. I'm confident that my experience as a corporate lawyer, school trustee, city councillor, and cabinet minister equips me to lead the city. Ladies and gentlemen, experience counts. I bring a strong, focused leadership that will deliver on the priorities people expect their council to work on. The majority of our current council has lost its way. They're not focused on funding the services that we need, and I'll put needs before wants. We need sustainable planning and an oversight to get Saskatoon back on track. We founded our campaign on 3 principles back in June: safe streets, smart spending, transparency, and accountability. And we'll enhance emergency services while investing in community safety solutions to ensure every neighborhood feels safe, and that we fund that by finding efficiencies within our current budget. We'll limit budget increases and ensure every dollar works hard to make sure our city is an affordable place to live, work, and do business. Council will take control over the budget by setting parameters based on an 8-point budget transformation plan that I've developed. No longer will we be surprised by huge budget deficits with no plan to address them. We're going to renew the trust in council by ensuring transparency and accountability, which will be at the heart of every decision. Saskatoon deserves leadership that listens and acts in the best interests of its residents. We'll consult and not hide behind closed doors, making decisions that affect the city without their input. We've seen a lot of that lately. And we'll build for families and businesses, whether it's upgrading infrastructure or expanding services. We'll pursue development policies that reduce red tape and transform procurement for the benefit of our businesses, and we will build a sustainable program to help address homelessness. And we'll make this city safer so that future generations enjoy the benefits of this great community. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Wyant. And now we'll move on to candidate Tarasoff.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be trying to represent our city as mayor. I have about 40 years of technical background behind me, which means that if I start talking about something, I tend to have spent an awful lot of time driving down into detail, sometimes way more detail than most people want to know about. But through that, I find things. I find a lot of things that are not being done properly at city. We want to encourage a lot of people to move to Saskatoon. We want to create the great place to live that we had. I grew up here. But we have to also have business. And what's happening, and I have personal experience in this, is too many businesses are avoiding Saskatoon. They will go just outside or further out. They don't want to be told that they have to put their office space in the downtown core, for example. Maybe that doesn't suit their business model. Should we be telling them how to run their business? Maybe the city should just support them and let the business decide what's best for them. When businesses move out of town, and they want to be as close as they can to Saskatoon, we don't get the tax benefit. We may provide some employment for people, and maybe they pay taxes. But why are we not having the businesses themselves want to be there? And that is a real problem. And I've worked in other jurisdictions where they have things like project expediters. And that helps expedite projects coming to the city, making decisions. But we have to get in front of some of the problems at City Hall that are causing business not to want to be here. We have big projects that we need to be working on for our own people. BRT is one of them. There's some real pitfalls after all these years with the BRT. And we can't provide steady bus service for kids right now, and they're telling them to predict that we're going to have problems this fall after all the years of planning. We can't do the simplest of things. I can do that. I can dig into that, and I can lead the solutions to fix it. So thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Now we'll move on to candidate Atchison.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, I'm Don Atchison. City Council's failed Saskatoon. They failed the residents of Fairhaven by allowing an overcrowded shelter in an inadequate facility to operate. They failed to enforce the rules that should have kept families safe. When it came to something as basic as snow removal, the city's budget wasn't there, a $20 million shortfall. The city's failed to prioritize attainable housing, contributing to the present crises. They caved to the federal government, allowing fourplex developments almost anywhere, where they will destroy the character of our neighborhoods, selling out Saskatoon for a mere 9 cents a day per year, less than returning a pop can to Sarcan. I'm running for mayor to make your life better by bringing common sense back to City Hall. With 22 years of experience, including 13 as your mayor, I led Saskatoon through some of its most prosperous times. In 2025, I will vote for a tax freeze. The hard-earned money you made belongs in your pocket, not the government's. We will bring back law and order. We will give the police the tools they need to make Saskatoon safe. Homelessness is not a one-size-fits-all. People have different needs. Some are battling addictions or mental illness. Others are seniors, veterans, or single parents who've fallen on hard times. We need to address this issue with compassion. We're going to create an industry to build homes for the homeless and lead the nation in finding real solutions. Historic neighborhoods have been neglected for the past 8 years. A block has become so dangerous in Saskatoon that Canada Post won't deliver anymore. With the school boards in the province, we will build new high schools in Brighton. We will make Saskatoon the most business-friendly city in Canada. The deed is going to have to wait. We're going to focus on safety, housing, and core infrastructure.
Excuse me, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Round of applause for Don Atchison. And I should just clarify, I'm generally a pretty polite guy, and I'll try not to be rude to any of you, but like the real deal is Manuel over here is going to turn down your mic if you get going on too long past your allotted time. So that will not play well to the television
Geez, I was
audience.
only a tenth of a second. Come on.
Okay, so thank you all for your opening comments. Now we'll begin with the first round of questions, and as shared with the candidates earlier today as well, the order will be: the first question will go to Carrie Tarasoff, the second question will go to Don Atchison, the third question will go to Gord Wyant, and the last question will go, for round one, will go to Cynthia Block. Okay, Carrie, the topic is crime and public safety. Members are highly concerned about safety issues, particularly in the downtown and North End areas. Criminal activity, public safety concerns, and their impact on businesses and quality of life are significant issues that members want to see addressed. As Mayor of Saskatoon, what can we expect to see from you in terms of how you will address the concerns the business community and residents have regarding crime and public safety?
Thank you, Keith. I used to wear a uniform, if you didn't know that, and it is my full intent to fully support people who wear a uniform in service every day. But that has to be accountable, just to be clear. But I do believe that our police are underfunded, and I also believe that some decisions that have been made by previous police leadership have left us a bit astray. I know the current chief is changing some of that, and with the latest influx of officers to come in, we'll start getting into things like the warrant squad to pick the 10 most violent people off the street, which then they can pick the next 10, and that should have been brought in from the Sanderson report. But I also look at other things. When we start talking about holistic or citywide safety for the whole city, that generally means decentralizing and defunding to some degree. You'll hear a lot of terms about we need a lot more AROs. We don't need a lot more AROs, we need a lot more regular officers. AROs are nothing more than an enhanced security guard. They work regular 8 to 5. They can't do a lot of things unless they call the police officer. If they work 5 years, they're going to make 80% of what a regular police officer makes for 30% of the work and 10% of the risk, and that can't be right. We need more officers that can actually take action, and we need to have them targeted onto the street. If we don't have dedicated enforcement in certain areas, we'll have Pleasant Hill, like they just came to the police commission begging for help. Fairhaven, begging for help. Fairhaven is still waiting for the police plan that was supposed to be derived 2 years ago now before the shelter was put in place. It's still not done. Now this police are saying they're going to create another plan for downtown. These are problems that we need to address urgently, and we need to get a focus on that, and that will be my focus. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tarasoff. I've been given the rebuttal cue by candidate Block, so I'll now allow candidate Block 1 minute in rebuttal response.
I've supported every police budget, and I trust police to tell us what resources they need. And I am in support of the police resources that are needed to target violent and organized crime in our city. I'm also committed to making sure that transit and operators have better supports, more resources, also to make sure they have better contact so that there's real-time opportunity to connect with safety resources. I want to have neighborhood and business safety plans. A business should not have to reinvent the wheel when they're trying to be safe in their own business, and neither should a homeowner. We should be able to work with them to have a coordinated plan and a clear plan to support everyone. It's not done. I still had 15 or 18 seconds. I think the most important thing that I just want to say is that we need a comprehensive plan in a whole city approach. As long as we only think policing is going to be the solution, we're going to lose as a city and as a community. We need to invest in all of the other things that help to make us safe in the long run from the ground up.
Thank you, candidate Block. Also sitting councillor, so it's hard to me to not call her Councillor Block. Okay, back to you, Kerry, for another minute of response to candidate Block.
Whole city approach, but then we're going to have targeted plans. You might see the problem with that. And that's the problem with a lot of things going on at the city. We're going to have this umbrella plan, which is going to cover everything, and it sounds kind of mushy. And then we're supposed to have some sort of detailed plan. Well, Fairhaven is supposed to get a detailed plan, it's still not done, because they weren't really given the okay to get it done. We need detailed plans for different areas for different reasons. In the North Industrial area, there's different types of crime. We need different types of policing to be done in those areas to account for it. If we're going to talk about buses, well, bus drivers should be able to refuse repeat offenders that are violent on their bus, and right now they're not. They have to let them on. Even if they don't pay for their fee, they have to let them on. And when the bus was 36 to 41 degrees temperature in the cab, and they were trying to raise problems with that, didn't hear anybody on council getting too excited about it, and yet they could have passed out and killed people from behind them. So we have to think harder. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tarasov. Any further discussion from either of you on this particular issue or topic for another minute?
Oh, we could keep going.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to. You have a minute. You have up to a minute to carry on.
Sure, I just take another crack at that. That's not a plan. It's not a plan to say, well, there's a whole bunch of other problems, so let's just abandon an overall plan. Of course, that's the whole purpose of getting businesses at the table, so that we can talk to them. We have behaved in a very reactive way. And in fairness to all orders of government, what's happening in our streets is accelerating at a pace that public policy and service providers cannot keep pace. What I'm trying to do is get in front of this so that going forward, we are proactive, bringing residents and businesses to the table and figuring out what we need. If we need different things for different neighborhoods, let's talk about that. But unless or until we are approaching this as a full city, as a full community problem, I don't think we get to the other side. And I'm committed to making sure we do.
So Mayor Clark talked a lot about roundtables. She's going to talk a lot about task forces. We're still going to get to the same place after a long, drawn out, get nowhere. We want to deal with a situation. Someone's breaking into a door, lots of businesses here. I've dealt with businesses having this problem.
Candidate Tarasov, we're past the time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, and apologies to Canada Block too for that first miscue on the mic. We're working through things, and we'll get it right by question 8, I promise. Actually, question 2. We'll have it right by question 2. Here we go. Okay, so thank you very much. That's a very enlightening conversation, and we appreciate your points of view on those. So now moving on to question number 2 with respect to property taxes and financial prudence at City Hall. And this question goes to candidate Atchison. NSBA survey respondents had a strong emphasis on financial responsibility, expressing concerns how property taxes are managed and the overall cost increases that City Hall is imposing on businesses and residents. Do you believe Saskatoonians are getting a good return on investment for the property tax and assortment of user fees they pay?
Thanks, Keith. The answer is no, they're not. We've just gone through this last budget of shrinkflation. Taxes went up, services went down. We're going to live within our means when I'm the mayor once again. Think about it. This past year, snow budget. Now, I figured out that it's going to snow every year in Saskatoon. They were short $20 million. So what they did was they went out and borrowed $20 million over a period of time so they didn't have to show that as a deficit. The deficit was stifling this past year. When you think about what they added on for garbage, about 3%, the 6.7%, and then the $20 million, and now they're running another deficit this year, things truly are out of control. We have to learn to live within our means, not borrowing any more money for operational side of things. We need to do things that make sense. We need to get back to basics. We need to look after our needs, not our wants. And that's what seems to be happening in our community. If you look at what's happening in housing right now, what a surprise. There's a housing crisis. Well, they've taken over when we were running at less than a 3% in 2016. Now it's at 0.5. That's 0.5 of a 1%. Things are truly not being managed properly. Saskatoon is in fact put on watch by the Superintendent of Insurance of Saskatchewan. And the reason being is City Council wouldn't show up for the pension meetings. City Council was also put on watch over not paying retirees on time. These are basic things. People that were in fact civil servants, they deserve to have their paychecks just like everyone does at the appropriate moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Atchison. We have Candidate Block wanting to rebut this one.
Mr. Chair, I think I just have a point of order. Is there anyone on your team doing any fact checking? Because this could be a long evening.
We have no fact checkers on our team presently.
So we're just supposed to accept that a deficit is true when it's inaccurate. Because if I have to spend all of my time, like on my last opportunity to have a rebuttal, to explain how somebody who is in this office should know better, I don't know how I get my clear opportunity to rebut other things that are factual, but I have a different view.
Well, let's hear your different view. You said you had one. Let's hear it.
If the rules stand that this is my last chance to rebut, I think I will save it. But it's very frustrating to hear somebody who had that office be able to say something so incredulous.
I think that the intention of that final minute of discussion is, let's say we'll pull all of you into that conversation so we can then have that fulsome discussion at that time, but within a minute. So I'll allow Mr. Tarasoff to put a hand up to rebut this particular point from Mr. Atchison, so I'll turn to Mr. Tarasoff for that rebuttal.
So right now, financial review, there's still not an audit done that was due in the Q4 of 2023. Fusion Wave audit is still not complete. It was due May of 2023. Retired debt is still being reinstated into new debt. Library got an increase in the last budget because they needed it for operations, and then shortly after realized, whoa, we don't know how to do accounting. We got a $900,000 surplus. We're going to roll a bunch of that into the new building. It constantly is going on. It's like a shell game of changing accounts, and that has to stop.
Back to you, Candidate Atchison.
Thank you, Keith. Well, I'm not the mayor right now. I hope to be. I'm quite surprised by the comments of Candidate Block. I thought there was a 6.5% increase in taxes this year. I thought we took garbage from being on the mill rate and passed that off as a service fee at about 3%. That if you add on another $20 million as well, that certainly adds on to the deficit, well in excess of 10% this year. And I'm being as kind as possible with those numbers. The fact is that other things that are going on in our city right now, we talk about doing things right, looking at new technology. When we send people out or we have to report potholes wherever they are, putting technology on our buses so they can in fact detect potholes in real time back to a system that can go out and fix them. We also need to look at the new water treatment plant that's going to be built right now. It's going to be built on the South Saskatchewan River. Well, if there is no water in the river, it doesn't matter how many treatment plants you put there. It needs to be on the North Saskatchewan.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll turn it open let's just call this last minute a free-for-all. Why don't we do that? And so anybody that has a comment.
Well,
Okay, candidate Wyant has
Yeah,
expressed an interest.
I mean, I'll start with this. I mean, there's been such an increase in burden on the last few years, and it's been unconscionable. It's literally 12% more of impact on the ratepayer this year than last year. And in the second year of the budget that's already been approved by this council, we'll see another 6% increase. What we need to do is we need to renew and revise the way we budget in this city. I developed an 8-point budget renewal plan that's going to create predictability and certainty, and that's what businesses want, that's what people in our community want. I'm not going to promise to lower taxes because I don't write checks I can't cash. But I will promise tighter controls over the budget and ensure transparency in all the budget discussions. Last year, there was 87 times when certain councillors proposed trimming the budget where those were rejected, and Councillor Block, I think you voted against those attempts almost every one of those times. I met a woman the other day. I was at her door and she was in tears because she can't afford to live in a home that she's lived in for 45 years.
Okay, and we're out of time with that, candidate Wyant, but the good thing is you've got the next question coming your way.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so question number 3. The topic is downtown development. Members are interested in how candidates plan to revitalize the downtown area, balancing development while addressing existing safety concerns. First of all, do you support the downtown event and entertainment district? And if so, how can this be successful given the current state of downtown Saskatoon? And if not, what ideas do you have for inspiring downtown development?
Well, thanks very much for the question. First of all, I'm a big fan of downtown revitalization because downtown is the heart of our community. That's why I was a strong supporter of South Downtown when I was on council, and we saw all the success that we've seen as a result of that. But I am concerned about timing, and I'm concerned about the funding model. First of all, there's no commitments from any other levels of government. The tax subclass on downtown hotels, who are just now getting back to pre-COVID levels. There's a threat to the Destination Marketing Fund, which is important for Destination Saskatoon when it comes to marketing this city across the country and internationally. If that subclass is imposed, that $1.2 billion budget today, that's not what the cost is going to be of this project. Tomorrow, we know what happens with capital projects, and we know how they can scale out of proportion. The tax incremental funding portion is a wild card which depends on development, and there's little interest so far in redeveloping any of the properties that are in proximity to where the downtown entertainment district is going to be. So we have too many challenges in terms of delivery of core services. We need to get our house in order before we start down this road. I prefer an approach that saw an expansion of TCU in order to accommodate larger conventions and trade shows in our downtown and see how we can move forward from that. If we were to proceed, it has to be phased without any impact to the taxpayer. Our taxpayers in this city are taxed already, and we can't afford to build this project on the back of the taxpayer.
Thank you, candidate Wyant, and we have candidate Atchison willing to make a rebuttal to that.
Well, thank you. First of all, if you can't afford to pay the snow budget of $20 million, how are you going to pay $1.5 billion for a new entertainment center downtown? The fact is, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at law and order. Until you have law and order, nothing is going to happen at all. People just don't want to go there. We need to have a greater presence of police officers all the time. It's interesting with the new shelter downtown, in the paper, the safety plan promises police and fire department personnel will be available throughout the surrounding areas 24 hours a day. What a misleading statement. People think that that means there's going to be a police officer and a fire department right there. Guess what, folks? They're 2 blocks away for the fire, 2 blocks from the police. So in fact, they did make a factual statement, but the fact is there's no one right there. For the children that are be going to clinics and dance schools, please give me a break. The other thing we need is housing. Far more housing in the downtown area with university students as well. Taxpayers are going to be on the hook for this
Candidate
thing as
Atchison,
well.
thank
So
you.
sorry.
Yep, no problem, thank you. And then a rebuttal from candidate Wyant.
Well, I'm not sure there's anything to rebut since
A
I
response,
agree with
rather.
pretty much everything that Mayor Atchison or Don Atchison had to say about this. The reality is that we have a significant safety problem in downtown Saskatoon. Crimes against a person are up 39.9% year over year in the downtown area. We have businesses that are locking their doors on 2nd Avenue. I walked down 2nd Avenue the other day, saw 6 broken windows in 2 blocks. If we can't solve the safety problem in downtown Saskatoon, I'm not sure how building a downtown entertainment district is going to be at all helpful. So let's get our house in order first before we start thinking about how we're going to invest literally billions of dollars in a downtown entertainment district.
I'll turn it over to any other candidates willing to speak. Candidate Tarasoff?
So River Landing was supposed to save us. Then the Ramey was supposed to save us. Then the library is supposed to save us. The farmer's market is supposed to save us. The festival site that actually we don't need now and is illegal to sit there and watch fireworks in is supposed to save us. It's going to cost $10 million more though, than they forgot to tell us that. So now the deed. The TIF area that they're going to allow for the deed, it came out on Evan Bray's show a few weeks ago. Mayor Clark admitted that the rest of the city will be bearing extra taxes to support all the development costs, the operational costs for that increased area within the TIF. And the TIF is 25th Street to 19th and the water from Spadina all the way to Avenue D. Anything that happens in there that requires extra police or fire or whatever will be borne by every taxpayer in the city, not just within the TIF.
I think carries.
I'll allow Candidate Block to speak.
I mean, I realize that we're going a little off format here, right?
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, I just wanted to say that anybody who thinks that we're going to be a more affordable city in the future, that we are going to be a place for all people, and that we're going to be able to figure a way how to be more efficient, we want to go forward with D, not today. It needs to stay on a shelf. And that's literally all that we have been about as a city, working with our whole community. Many of you in the room sit on the Deed Advisory Committee that I'm co-chair. And what it means is you go step by step. If it makes sense, you keep moving forward. If it makes sense, you keep going forward. We've approved a funding strategy. That is all, folks. And it's similar to when you build a big bridge infrastructure project. I mean, today the South Bridge would be over $1 billion. It sits on a shelf until we can figure out a full funding strategy. If one dime of taxpayers' dollars is used to move SaskTel Centre to downtown, I will not support it. And I think that in the mayor's office, we need to be steely focused on the urgent matters of our time, on homelessness and community safety.
That kind of sounds like John Drapeau.
Sorry, Mayor Candidate Atchison. I'm going to move on to the next question now. We're winging it a little bit. I apologize to my
That's
candidates
okay.
for how we're
That's all right.
going on the fly here.
That's okay.
But I do want to give everyone equal opportunity to speak. So that's
I'm fine.
you'll have opportunity.
I'll get over it. I won't go to the bridge today. The South Bridge, that is.
Okay, so moving on to question number 4, Candidate Block. This one is yours. It's under the heading of business attraction and retention. The ability of the city to attract and retain businesses is important. Members want to know if the incoming mayor will make Saskatoon a more business-friendly environment. How will your leadership inspire business friendliness at City Hall?
Thanks for the question, Keith. In my tenure, downtown and Broadway bids, I've been a member of those boards. I sit on the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Authority, also Discover Saskatoon, and I am, as I mentioned, co-chair of the Downtown Event and Entertainment District Advisory Committee. I get how things work. I get how they move together in terms of maximizing our ability to attract economic investment and to continue to along the path of being, Canada's strongest economy and having full employment. So one of the things that I have supported is tax abatement under the Adaptive Reuse Program, new streetscaping resources for business districts, and SRETA is funded by the city, and they are an urgent partner in terms of how we go forward for economic investment for business. There's other tax abatements through SRETA. When businesses expand, they support new entrepreneurs. They attract and court businesses through our P4G, our Plan for Growth, that includes partners from outside of Saskatoon. That just makes us stronger. And they're marketing us around the world together, SRETA and Discover. That's a very exciting opportunity for a city that is growing as fast as we are. And I'm excited about that. My plan is to continue to strengthen these partnerships, review and strengthen abatement when it makes sense for the economic benefit of all taxpayers, good basic infrastructure and amenities, quality of life, livable, walkable, attractive, affordable city to attract talent and to attract families. This is how we compete for a brighter future and a brighter economic future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Block. We have candidate Atchison wanting to make a rebuttal.
Well, first of all, we need to reduce crime in the downtown area and throughout the city of Saskatoon. We need to stop chasing business away from Saskatoon. You voted against having a $500 million environmental project in the Saskatoon. We need to have frequent bus service as well, not the BRT. The other thing is we need to get back to saying yes when people come in for building permits. And what I'm proposing are building permits will be done on time. And if they're not done on time, each day that they're late, the city will reduce the cost of the permit. So with tardiness, the city in fact could end up not collecting any money for their permits at all. Let the administration figure out how they're going to get it done. The old adage all the time is, we're overwhelmed, there's too much, we can't do this, we can't do that, is over. We're going to meet with the business communities as well, just as we've done with the mayor's committees before with all the different wards. Meeting business at their own.
Oh, sorry, I was not paying attention. I got distracted. Yes, no. Thanks for the rebuttal. Candidate Atchison, candidate Block, any response to that?
Everyone knows that we have urgent matters to address in our city, and as I've said, I pledge to make them a priority. I think it's important that we are laying the foundation for a better future for everyone. We know we need business. Businesses are foundational to a good way forward in our city. But we also need a strong labor force. We need residents with us. We need to be able to attract the talent. That's why I think it's so important that we have a wider angle lens, why I think a livable, walkable city means a lot. I sit on the finance committee, and we're right now hiring a new internal auditor. And it's surprising to me how important it is when you put that out to market, that it matters what our city feels like, what it looks like, what are the amenities that you are offering. Of course, we have to make sure all of our communities are safe. But let's not forget about the other crucial things to make sure that we go forward and that everyone can be prosperous together. Thank you.
Candidate Atchison?
Well, we can talk all we want to about having a walkable, rideable city on bikes, but if you can't pay your property taxes, it isn't worth a hill of beans. The next thing is, we're not talking about any of the new industries that need to come to Saskatoon. The nuclear industry is just around the corner. In 10 years, there's going to be nuclear power plants in Saskatchewan. We need to have the businesses here get themselves up for certification and that along the way. Those are things that we need to be able to do at this time. We need to be able to work with all the different industries around the city of Saskatoon. We need to talk to the mining industry about the regulations that are hindering them from being able to do productive work in the north and around our community so we can get the best dollar value for our businesses, and that will certainly help them come. And when they find out that we're voting to be the most business-friendly city in all of Canada once again, and we're going to prove that by in fact putting into place the permits and that, everyone will want to come to our community. I look to the past, what we did with the Cineplex Galaxies as well. I look at all the things that we've done.
Sorry, yep, we are now complete with that rebuttal, so we're going to move on to question number 5. So this is round 2. We're starting a different order, so this particular order will see candidate Wyant, followed by candidate Atchison, followed by candidate Tarasoff, then finally candidate Block. So question number 5 goes to candidate Wyant, and the issue is homelessness, mental health, and addictions. Members see these issues as interconnected with crime and public safety. Working with other levels of government to address these social issues holistically is considered important for improving the city's overall environment. What solutions would you recommend to address the homelessness, mental health, and addictions concerns business and residents have?
Well, thanks, Keith. The homelessness crisis is obvious to everyone, and while in Saskatoon has few levers to pull, without significant support from other levels of government, we need to continue to work with other levels of government to get the resources that we need. We can't hope to solve this on our own, but what the city of Saskatoon can do is to coordinate the delivery of those programs, coordinate the delivery of those programs that are provided by service providers. I propose to work to take control of abandoned properties in Saskatoon, and for those taken for taxes, underutilized properties from the Sask Housing Corporation. I propose to work and build a partnership between SIIT and Sask Polytechnic, industry and government to renovate those homes and turn them over to housing providers in the city, like Camponi or Quint or the United Way through their Journey Home program. Not only will we have the ability to increase housing stock, we'll be affording the opportunity for training at our post-secondary institutions in the area of home renovation. This is going to help not only fulfill the shortage of adequate housing and shortage of skilled workers, it's going to create an atmosphere where people can have a home and live in dignity. This is a concentrated effort which will require building relationships, and those are all relationships that I have. I met with SIIT and I met with SaskPoly, and I broached the concept with the province. And I've spoken to industry who have indicated support with both material and mentorship. We need to create safe spaces that people can call home, where people can live in dignity. As far as the other programs are concerned in terms of mental health and addictions, we need more support from the province. We need more support from the federal government. And we know there's been more support that's come from the province. More work to do in this area, but we need to continue to lobby the province to get the resources that we need in the agencies that we have.
Thank you. I'm going to start saying Mr. and Ms. if that's all right with you. Mr. Wyant, Canada seems to be a mouthful for me for some reason. I'll now move to Mr. Tarasoff for a response.
So what Saskatoon needs to do is have a modular shelter in the North Light Industrial area on screw piles. If you understand that, it's reconfigurable. It would be a permanent but semi-permanent configuration, can be broke apart. We can provide separate housing for women and children. And we do it far enough up north in the city that we remove everything from the commercial area and the residential area, so there's place for people to be taken with proper treatment that's dignified. And it's compound, so they will be driven in and driven out as they need to go. Services will come to them. But we gotta quit breaking our own zoning bylaw to do bad things, which is what Fairhaven was. And Mr. Wyatt has indicated that Councillor Block somehow bent the zoning bylaw. She had no part in voting on anything that bent anything. But as a lawyer, he should know that the city broke it when they did what they did, and then the province broke things as well. And I'd like him to admit that.
Thank you, Mr. Tarasoff. Mr. Wyant, a response?
Well, there's no question that the province provided the facility to the tribal council to operate the shelter. The question comes as to the appropriate zoning. That property is not zoned for a shelter facility. And it seems to me that that's the responsibility of the city council to ensure that when a property is made available for development, that it's compliant with the zoning. At the very least, there should have been public consultation, and that's required, of course, when you're moving forward with a zoning change. And there should have been a community safety plan that was put in place once the shelter was open. The residents out in Fairhaven have been begging for some community safety. They've been begging for more officers. The province provided money for some AROs, which never were put out into the Fairhaven area. So when we start thinking about this, when the city has a responsibility to comply with the zoning and they don't comply with the zoning, that responsibility falls directly on city council. And the people in Fairhaven and the surrounding area have every right to complain about it. It shouldn't go there.
Okay, thank you, candidate Wyant. Mr. Tarasoff has hand up first, but I will allow time for candidate Block to speak to as well.
Okay, I'll speak quick. We have 1,200 pages of Freedom of Information documents. What's interesting is Mr. Wyatt's name is mentioned in some of it for Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. Councillor Block's is not. So I guess the question should be asked. The province knows that that's supposed to be a special care home, which requires it to be licensed within 6 months. It's coming up on 2 years, still not licensed. That's the provincial obligation. We have communications that show the province knew they were dodging terms, trying to find a way to make it look on paper like it was getting through. So the province had a major part of it, and someone who would have been in cabinet would have been privy to all that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tarasoff. Candidate Block, response?
You know, I think I'm going to use my time just by acknowledging that Fairhaven needs to change. We know it must. I can think of a million reasons why that ran wrong, and I think pointing fingers at this point, I don't really want to get defensive about that. I have a different answer, but I really want to use my time to say a couple of other things. Yes, Fairhaven needs to be changed. I want to also acknowledge that whatever happens next, we need to know, where do people go? Homeless shelters are supposed to be temporary. One thing I agree with Mr. Wyant is that the Project Journey Home is a housing first program. I support that. It lowers the barriers, and that is precisely what we need to solve homelessness in our city. We urgently need the province to work with us. But I want to point out that Mr. Wyant supported changes to the income support program in Saskatchewan, which is bringing new homeless people to our city every single day. When he had the power to change it, why didn't he?
We're flying now. Candidate Atchison has indicated he wants to speak to this topic as
Okay,
well.
thanks. Well, first of all, we need to treat everyone with compassion. And the problem we have here right now is we're painting everyone with the same brush. And it's just not true. We have people with mental illness, we have people with drug addictions, single parents with families, we have war veterans as well. We have all these different groups that need different needs, and we need to look after them. We need to create 10,000 new homes, affordable, attainable homes in Saskatoon in the next 10 years. We also need to accommodate another 20 to 30,000 of traditional homes in our city. We also need to look at the deed. They're going to put $30 million out of the land branch into the downtown from the land branch. Take the $30 million, invest some of that into affordable, attainable homes, help out those that are homeless as well. We've got a plan that we're going to announce on Thursday, and I think it's going to be really exciting. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Candidate Atchison, and thank you all for your comments on that issue. Obviously, it's a topic near and dear to everyone's heart, as we all want to see the best for our city, and appreciate everyone's comments there. Moving on to question number 6. This one is going to Candidate Atchison. It's with regards to capital project spending. Much discussion and interest has been raised by Saskatoon residents about major capital projects, such as the Central Library, the Deed Project, and Bus Rapid Transit. What are your thoughts on the amount of capital spending that the city has set its sights on for the future, and how can we as taxpayers afford these projects?
Thank you very much. Well, the first thing we need to do is get the real numbers out there. First of all, the deed's not going to be $1.5 billion. The best case scenario is $2.2 billion, and I believe when it's all said and done, that's completing the entire project, not part of it, will be anywhere from $2.75 to $3 billion. That's the same, less than what we paid for the Circle Drive South Bridge, the Steel Bridge, and the Mistawassa Bridge, all combined together. Those are things that are going on. The Bus Rapid Transit, they tell us that it's going to start at $279 million, I believe, but they don't tell you what the finished price is. Until we get real numbers that tell us what the complete costs are, it is impossible to have great dialogue. And so those are things that are going on in that area. The library, a disaster. Did you know that they sold the library before they got the new one built? And without doing that, now they're saying, well, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? If they reduce the library anymore, there's going to be less new space in the new library than there was in the old library. That doesn't make any sense at all. Council will say, well, don't worry about it. It wasn't us, it was the library board. Council approves their budget at the end of the day. They say what they can tax. They have their own tax, so that's what's going on. So in those areas, the water treatment plant's another one. Building it on the South Saskatchewan, saying, well, we're going to need it in the future. We need partners. We need to, for example, to have business involved. We need to have the Indigenous community involved. We need Crown corporations involved. Those are all the different things that are required to do some of these projects. Bus Rapid Transit, again, it needs to be called frequent bus service, where people can catch a bus between 6 and 8 minutes. With Bus Rapid Transit, until you move the rail lines, it's not Bus Rapid Transit, and it's going to take you longer to get home on the bus on Bus Rapid Transit than it does your car.
Okay, thank you, Candidate Atchison. I have to apologize to Candidate Tarasoff because Candidate Wyant also indicated he would like to rebut, and he's got some opportunities to do so.
Well, thanks. Well, infrastructure is the core service of any municipality. And I don't have any difficulty when council dedicates capital to our infrastructure that we need to continue to grow and maintain the city. This is a question of wants versus needs. We've seen what happens in other municipalities when infrastructure is ignored. We've seen what happens in Calgary. We've seen what happens in Montreal. We can't afford to scrimp on contributions to capital when we're supporting the infrastructure that we need and the infrastructure that we need to grow this city. As far as the library is concerned, I mean, people will argue that's a project of the library board. But again, as we noted, that was guaranteed. The loan was guaranteed by City Council. I made it very, very clear that I don't think they can build that library within the capital budget that they have, and I've made it clear that I'm not going to support, as a member of City Council, as your mayor, any further capital contributions to that library or any further support to the library. They've said they can build it within the budget. I doubt it, but they've said they can.
Thank you, Candidate Wyant. We are out of time, but I'll turn it back to Candidate Atchison for a response.
Well, I guess the question I have on the library is, if they get it half finished, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do? It's like everything else. The train left the station, you got to put more money in it because otherwise it's going to go down the tubes. What we need to do is the library needs to come back to the new council with the real numbers, no construction at this time, and that's the bottom line on that. When we get to, for example, the deed downtown, in Edmonton, it was $650 million 5 years ago to build that rink. In Calgary right now, the city of Saskatoon is saying we have to be environmentally friendly. Well, if we're going to be as environmentally friendly as they are in Calgary, their rink right now is going to ring out at $979 million. Where is all the money coming from? I can tell you right now, the city of Saskatoon is not going to go broke because of what we did with the pension plan, but I can tell you right now, businesses and people like you can go broke because of the way taxes will be held.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Candidate Tarasoff, then back to Candidate Block.
So we have a lot of infrastructure in the city that doesn't get updated properly. There's budgets allotted from tax in lieu, and the problem is that we take almost $50 million out of the electric utility, but out of sewer and water, we took $27 million out last year, but they were shortfall of $10 million that they needed to maintain the utility. So they took the extra $10 million out, which should have been kept in for maintenance and expansion, and they added that for spending somewhere else. How long they've been doing that, I'm not quite sure. But that is a worrying trend, especially when now they want to do housing accelerator, which will be nothing but haphazard, unplanned for sewer and water changes throughout the city that we don't have proper engineering for, which means it's going to cost at a greater amount of money just after they pave the streets like usual. Thank you.
Candidate Block.
Thanks. No city council has ever invested more in basic infrastructure in our history, including this year, in a year of great inflation. And you know why I didn't support it? Because we know what happens when we turn a blind eye to those important assets. You might not notice this year or the next, but it means it costs us more in the long run. And it means we may be putting that on our kids and grandkids. And in a way, that honestly is what has been happening. When I joined council, they had just started a Building Better Roads program. And what that meant was we were on a cycle of 70 years to rehabilitate roads. We are now on best practices at 20 or 25. We used to be on a plan of every 200 years for sidewalk rehabilitation. We are now on a plan between 20 and 30 years. It matters to me that we don't let our foot off the accelerator for short-term political expediency, only to have to pay more in the long run and put it on our kids. It matters that we're telling the truth about the costs, and I'd like to know how you're going to pay for 0%.
Okay, but before doing so, sorry, Candidate Atchison, we're going to move on
Well, that's quite all right. You just move right along, okay?
to question number 7.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your willingness to kind of go with the flow here, because what we're trying to do is just engage in genuine dialogue in each of your platforms, and I think that this format is allowing that opportunity to come forward. So thank you very much for your ability and willingness to carry on in this format. So, and apologies if you're getting caught off guard. Question number 7 goes to Candidate Tarasoff. The topic is mission creep at City Hall. Many people accuse the city of Saskatoon of mission creep, which is to say that they're getting away too far from just offering the basic services like road and infrastructure, protective services, waste management, and transportation. Do you agree or disagree with this statement, and please provide justification for your position?
I agree that there's a big amount of mission creep at Saskatoon, and I think it's politically driven. I think also, though, for example, the green program, there's a good example. Was watching that green program. My wife and I follow quite a few things and hadn't heard too much about the green program. It was a few months away from the deadline when they were supposed to start up, and I said, you know, we should go look at that new infrastructure that they had to build out there. So we took a long drive and found the location, and right away I knew someone wasn't being honest because there was no building there. Now, some junior engineer with a brand new truck with the city of Saskatoon on it, nice air conditioning, should have driven that at least once and realized that there was no building and that it takes a number of months to build a building of that type, so that probably they weren't going to be ready. Nothing was said, and yet we knew it. We started bringing up questions about it. Sure enough, they fall short. Now they want to empire build and they want to do the green program. Well, maybe they can do it, but they hadn't planned on it. The place that they picked to do it hadn't been researched for a long time. And the same people that keep making some of the same mistakes, like putting Chief Mistawassa's Bridge through a chemical buffer, comes to mind. Picking a festival site that's supposed to be for fireworks watching when there's a safety buffer that allows you not to be in the festival site. These are the same engineers that keep doing this over and over. We need to quit this. But then when you get into the rest of the city, we're going to be now dealing with things that the province is normally involved with, or even maybe the federal government. And it becomes one of those things. So when you wonder where $50 million out of the electric utility went, and $27 million out of your water and sewer budget, and it disappears into general revenues, now you know. They get swallowed up in special interest projects, and the things, you look at your streets got a hole in it and go, well, that wasn't the interest that they were worried about. And that has to change.
Okay, so we have two candidates wanting to address this, but I'll go to candidate Wyant first and then followed by candidate Block.
Well, as I mentioned before, we have an 8-point budget renewal plan to protect and enhance the delivery of frontline services and core services, and we're going to do that by finding efficiencies. And we need to stay within our lane in terms of the programming at City Hall. Do we really need to provide obedience training at our off-leash parks or provide free EV charging? Those are just two examples. And I think when we drill down, we're going to find a whole bunch more. We can't afford to spend any more money on virtue signaling in this city. We need to stay within our lane. We need to increase the taxes, the effective productivity with the taxes that we spend. It's an important factor when people and companies want to relocate here and why some want to move on. So when you look at a council spending more than the rate of inflation and refusing to look for opportunities to trim the budget, that's just not sustainable. So when we drill down and look at an 8-point plan for budget renewal, that's where we're going to regain control of our budget. That's where we're going to drill down and take advantage of making sure that we provide our services, support the core services.
Candidate Wyant, thank you very much. And just to maintain some integrity, I'm going to go to candidate Tarasoff for the response from his original question, then back to you, candidate Block.
So the city came up with something called the wayfinding project. So all of 23rd Street is a wayfinding area. And when I heard about this, I was kind of confused because during the last election I ran had a press event there because there's no sidewalks in front of some of the houses that have been there for 85 to 90 years, still don't have sidewalks. But anyway, they put turnabouts in there to make it bike lane friendly, but now they're calling it a wayfinding, walking. And so I contacted and I said, like, there's no sidewalks in part of it. So then they figured people would walk on the street. They had to put signs up because now wayfinding. So they put 45 signs up. My wife and I went and took pictures. Some blocks don't have signs. They missed some are within trees. But we went back the other day and realized that on the cross streets they put signs in. So there's actually 90 signs been put down this street in addition to this, and there's still no sidewalks in front of the houses. And it's supposed to be for walking and bicycling. That is how crazy we are.
Candidate Block, I'll ask you for your rebuttal.
With a small amount of time, I'll just say that provincial downloading is not helping. Cuts to Meewasin over $400,000 per year, $20 million in downloaded costs for new schools, hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent right now to help choose a site for a homeless shelter. It's a provincial government responsibility. That's just to name a few. And that's not to put everything on the provincial government. Cities across Canada are facing these escalating inflationary measures way more than we are at home. To give an example, a fire engine cost $800,000 in 2020. Today, it's $1.8 million. We need to advocate to the federal government for a national strategy to a national problem and make sure that we get base funding for national issues. And an example of that would be baseline funding for transit. We need relief. Funding tools that are only property tax, they are a disservice to all of us, and it needs to change.
Popular topic because we have both candidate Atchison, who indicated first, and then candidate Wyant, who wants to speak to this topic as well.
Well, first of all, when we talk about creep, what we're going to do is we're not going to hire any more employees. That's the bottom line. The only place we're going to do more in employment is in the protective services. It's interesting when we talk about funding. We went from 1% to 3/4 of a point. City Council bid on a one-time funding, and now we're short of funding along the way. Debt retirement to go to the operational budget as well. We're going to take depreciation rate on capital, and we're going to reduce that. Capital replacement reserve is going to be put on pause. Capital reserve to be visited as well. A pause on the environmental file. These are things that we can do that do not cost the city of Saskatoon one penny, but we can get down to a 0 mill rate increase. What we need to do is use our creative works and minds to get us to the point where we need to be at a 0 increase. People are having a struggle out there. They want to stay in their homes, not be evicted.
Okay, and final comment on this topic, we'll go to candidate Wyant.
Well, far be it for me to defend the provincial government, but revenue sharing last year was up $14 million. Our revenue sharing program is the only program across the country. It's the envy of every municipality. Police funding is up. We just provided, or the province just provided, another amount of money to fund another 37 officers in the city of Saskatoon, and that's in addition to the 53 sworn officers that the province already provides. So to say that there's offloading from the provincial government, what we have is we've got a spending problem. With revenue sharing up, with municipal tax revenue up, we still had an almost 12% raise in our taxes last year. We need to be spending within our means, just like each one of you has to spend within your own homes. Imagine being faced with a $55 million deficit and no plan to address it. Even more shockingly there was council members that were taken by surprise by that number. That's just incompetence.
Thank you, candidate Wyant, and I apologize, candidate Block, because I did say final comment. We have had comments from everybody on this issue, but you get the next question. It's the 8th and final question that's coming your way. You ready for that?
I'm not sure if I know this question. Go ahead.
Well, you didn't think we get through a debate without talking about the roads, did you?
Oh, great. And I've already talked about that, so I can talk about the other things I care about. Okay.
There you go. Okay, so the topic is infrastructure needs and maintenance. Rightly or wrongly, Saskatoon's road network receives a fair bit of criticism for its current state. There's some truth to the old saying that it's either winter season, pothole season, or construction season. Some of the at times disrepair can be attributed to at times disrepair can be attributed to water main breaks and other necessary infrastructure maintenance below the surface. Under your leadership, what can the City of Saskatoon do to align the city's road and infrastructure needs and maintenance with the expectations of residents?
Thank you for the question. I think just to add what I said before in terms of maintaining our road network, our sidewalk network, and our underground infrastructure. Let's remember that we can do 5% of our road network per year. It takes a while to get the whole city done, but we are fully funded to get that done without any further increases to property tax. And I think we most significantly need to ask all candidates of whether they're wards or running for mayor, please make sure we keep the accelerator on so that we don't lose pace, so that our business districts look beautiful, so our neighborhoods look beautiful, so we can attract more business and more people to our city. Those are really important foundational things. And the other thing we really have to do is get our heads around LINK. LINK really is a modern public transportation system that's designed to change our city into a modern city, a 21st century city that is growing and trying to accommodate so many more people. And it actually is doing the exact thing that candidate Atchison is asking it to do. It is going to be, you just go to the bus stop on any of the main lines and a bus will be there. If you miss it, somewhere between 7 or 8 minutes later, it's going to be there. That is what we mean by a modern public transportation system. I don't want to lose the opportunity to also just say a couple of things about finances. We know that the city is facing some struggles, just like cities are across Canada, but the province's debt is outstripping Saskatoon by a long shot. First of all, we aren't allowed to run deficits. Everyone needs to know that. The gap was going forward. We were getting the $1.8 million for fire trucks. How do we say no to that? That's how you start to have bigger tax increases, when you really can't afford to tighten your belt when you need urgent infrastructure like that. The provincial debt is 2.5 times larger since Mr. Wyant took office. Every family of 4, $100,000, okay, $90,000 and some, is what they owe. That is unsustainable.
Okay, thank you, candidate Block. And Thankfully, candidate Wine put up his hand because according to my ticker, you're one short of everybody else, so this is perfect.
Well, when it comes to the provincial debt, most of the provincial debt is in capital. It's in building hospitals. It's in building schools. How many new schools have been built in the city of Saskatoon over the last number of years? When I was minister, it was 8. Well, it was 8 when I was minister, Don, and more than that now. We have a children's hospital. You don't build these things without incurring debt. Debt that's serviced by the provincial economy. As long as we're growing the economy, we have the capacity to pay down our debt. But if you're not investing in capital, then you're not getting the infrastructure that you need to have livable communities across this province. And that's why, in terms of building infrastructure, whether it's hospitals or whether it's schools, whether it was Gordie Howe Bowl, whether it was Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan, those are all funded projects that come from the provincial government. And I can't think anybody on this stage or anybody in this room would want the provincial government to turn away from building capital projects that enhance the life and the benefits for the people of this city.
Thank you. Candidate Block, a response to that?
I have no further comment.
No further comment. Candidate Cherisoff?
The one thing I see that is on the horizon that could be the biggest thing in saving a lot of our roads in our city is to divert a lot of the heavy traffic. And the provincial bypass will be the freeway. However, it's got to be worked out, needs to be done. And that has to come back up to the forefront and be looked at. There's been some past decisions and locations of some things, including the Chief Mistawassus Bridge, that has caused a kerfuffle in where that location could be for where the highway would join through, and now there's the buffer from Wanuskewin runs into it, so it very greatly limits. And when we talk about the swales, this is the problem. And I worked on the swale report 20 some years ago as a draftsman. The problem is engineers make one mistake and then we get saddled with it forever. But we have to solve this highway debate to try to create growth for the city long term.
Thank you. And we'll go to candidate Wine, then candidate Atchison.
Well, as far as moving traffic around the city, it's becoming more and more important. Saskatoon is the economic engine of this province. It serves the north. It serves the north with technology companies, with many other companies that support industry. I'm a fan of looking at whether or not we can use the infrastructure that we already have to move traffic around the west side of Saskatoon. We already have the Gordie Howe Bridge. We don't need to build a new bridge on the north end of town. If we can move the traffic all the way around the west side, connect with 7 and 14, bring it all the way around the top to connect to 11 and 12. So there's options that we can look at when it comes to transportation network in the city, and I think we need to do some work in looking at what those alternatives might be.
Okay, candidate Atchison.
Well, I heard about the Mistawassa. I guess we were talking about the speed trap that we have there. That should be at a far greater speed than what it's at today, frustrating people not to use it. I think of when Circle Drive South was built, the Gordie Howe Bridge, and how that has facilitated. Just think if that wasn't there today under my tutelage. The other part is when we talked about having a 1% on the PST, I was the mayor that was in place at that time, and the rest of Canada wondered, how did we ever get that done? Well, it was between strong negotiations and having great relationships with the provincial government. The other part is when you talk about infrastructure, the Circle Drive South, the Saskatoon Freeway. That right now is scheduled to be 15 to 20 years away. What are we going to do with the transportation over the next 15 to 20 years? Our population is going to grow probably between 100 and 150,000 people. We've got to get working on these projects today. When I heard about the sidewalks, I really had to smile because it was the previous council that I had led that put that into place.
Sorry, I wasn't looking at the time again, but I did get Councillor Block to, candidate Block to extend her hand, so we'll give the final word to her before turning to final comments.
I guess I would just say that, and that's another reason, Mr. Atchison, that it's important that 0% property tax impact would mean an impact to that program. I would not be in favor of supporting that at all. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's good for you.
Okay, and with that, we are done the Q&A portion of the program today, so how about a nice round of applause for our folks for winging it along. Okay, so we're going to close the program with some closing comments from our candidates, and they're going to go in the following order. Candidate Atchison, followed by Candidate Wyant, followed by Candidate Block, and Candidate Tarasoff will close things off. So with that, over to you, Candidate Atchison, for your closing comments. 2 minutes.
I have a confession to make. Sometimes I slip into a habit of talking about solutions, and a friend of mine gave me this reminder to keep me grounded. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. As a businessman, I know that to be true. Every decision comes with trade-offs. It's part of what you do every day. You are accountable not just to your businesses, but to your employees and their families. It's about making the right choices even when there's no perfect answer to your businesses to allow them to thrive. I have another confession. While I worry about the city, I worry about you, your businesses, and the citizens of Saskatoon. And that is why I'm running for mayor. I came today with an action plan. I know what it takes to make Saskatoon vibrant. Our job is to consider policy options and choose the best path forward. I believe the options that I offer on homelessness, climate change, and taxes can move Saskatoon in the right direction. What matters is the ability to make wise choices, choices that balance growth, quality of life, and financial responsibility. I believe my record shows that over the past 13 years as a mayor. During my time as mayor, we worked with all other levels of government to build 3 bridges, 15 schools, included the much needed in the West End. What really got the city moving was setting the right environment for business. Together, we rejuvenated historic neighborhoods, created new ones, and supported commercial developments. River Landing is a shining example of what can accomplish when businesses lead the way. I worked well with the federal and provincial governments. Restoring law and order is essential. We must not sacrifice our quality of life. You, the business community, are the ones that know that best. Saskatoon companies are world leaders, and with the right approach, we'll even attract more. So, Saskatoon, we're going to bring back.
I think we're ready for the closing comments from, thank you very much, Candidate Atchison. Closing comments from Candidate Wyant.
Well, thanks very much, Keith, and thanks everyone, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's choice is clear. If you're ready for a city that truly listens and responds, then it's time to choose change and demand accountability. Change isn't just necessary, it's crucial for our future. I'm Gordon Wyant, and I'm running for mayor because I believe I've seen the challenges you face and heard your calls for a city that works for you. My commitment is to be a mayor that not only hears, but acts. You deserve transparent leadership that puts your needs first, ensuring safe streets and smart spending. And if I have the honor of serving as your mayor, I promise to be accountable to you, to make every decision with transparency, and to focus on what truly matters to improve our city. Together we can renew, we can build, and we can grow Saskatoon into a city that reflects our hopes and fulfills our needs. Thank you very much for being here today. Let's embrace this change for real change. Vote Gordon Wyant, proven leadership for a thriving Saskatoon.
Thank you, Candidate Wyant. Now next, Candidate Block.
Saskatoon, you deserve a modern 21st century city that embraces the incredible opportunity ahead. And you deserve a mayor that stands by their record, can make the tough decisions, and tells you the truth. And you deserve a mayor that can work in collaboration with our community, including the business community, and a mayor that will make sure we are building a city that is vibrant, resilient, and future ready so all people can thrive. A place where our treaty relationship is honored, newcomers are embraced, and where all of our children and grandchildren will be proud to call home. This election matters. We need to move forward, not backward. We need our city to keep up, to compete, to ensure we're not a flyover city, but a destination to live, to work, to visit, and to invest. I'm ready to lead with integrity, passion, and a genuine commitment to the future of the city, with an unwavering resolve to do it together. Saskatoon has always been a city that looks after each other. We pull off amazing feats, even when others say we can't, and we never give up. And I will continue to believe that as long as we work together, not only will we be able to achieve it, we will definitely overcome. Thank you very much, and I invite you to join me. Please go to cynthia2024.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada Block. And last word to, second last, because I'm going to have a couple closing comments, but Candidate Tarasoff, your closing comments, please.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight. It is very honored for me to actually just have this chance to talk to you. I'm a very technical person. I used to be a military officer. I've been trained in leadership. I've been working on some very technical things most of my life. And if you pay attention to what's going wrong in the city, you'll find out it has a very strong technical basis that isn't being noticed. If you want some of the same, these people, good people, but they will not understand why city administration is failing. They will not drive down to the level that needs to be done to catch it. And if you follow that you need results, you'll know that I'm the one that puts my neck out. You want to look for a solution on rail? I have one. You want to look for a way to get out of Montgomery? The city wasn't considering a good way. I did my own homework, I found one, and now it's actually considered by the city as one of the 4 options because all the citizens decided to fight for it. That's who I'm going to fight for. There are simple solutions to complex problems, but too often we're finding complex solutions to simple problems, and when they fail, we go for even more complex solutions, and that just is wasteful. And no one is accountable. We need ethics in the mayor's office. We need the chief of staff for the mayor to have an ethical standard. Right now, they do not of any standard. And I think that we need to track documents better because we're doing a lot of correspondence regarding a mayor that should be held over as a complete unit for following administrations to come in and see what actually took place. And even that isn't guaranteed. So my name is Kerry Tarasoff. I would like to be your mayor because I want to serve. I'm a hardworking person. If you want to look into more of me, my website is kerrytarasoff.ca. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, each of our 4 mayoral candidates. I can't begin to express our gratitude for you for not only being here tonight, but more so for your willingness to lead our city. It's often, well, it's a tiring and thankless job for the most part, grueling, demanding, but I just want to express our gratitude on behalf of those in the room, the NSBA membership, and certainly the residents at large for your willingness to put your name forward and lead our city, so thank you very much. A couple more thanks to pass out. Thank you to the Travelodge Hotel for the wonderful venue and the food and hospitality we enjoyed. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to our live audience for joining us today. We really enjoyed your presence here. It wouldn't have been the same without you. We did it in 2020, didn't we, Carrie and Dawn? And it wasn't the same experience, I must say. I want to thank Rogers TV, specifically Eric Steiner. Thanks to my staff. I also want to just, I don't think I need to commend this room for going out to vote on November 13th, but the viewing audience certainly. November 13th, cast your ballot. Not only do we have an opening for the next mayor of Saskatoon, but there are 5 additional wards that will have a new councillor at that point. So this year is an especially important one for your voice to be heard. And just an announcement as well. So on November 28th, we have all 4 candidates have agreed to speak at our annual Fireside Mayor's Luncheon. So one of you will be joined by our board chair, Chelsea Stebner, for our annual Fireside Chat at TCU Place. So thank you very much for that willingness to do so. So good luck to all candidates. Good luck to all civic candidates overall. And thank you and good night.